So Captain Novolin is a game meant for diabetic patients. It's totally a lot of fun.
The premise of the game was that you were a diabetic superhero who had to fight evil sweets like donuts, which in my book are never evil.
You're running along and you have to jump over lethal donuts that might send you into a diabetic shock. And that's pretty much the game.
So, in between levels, you have this doctor woman comes on and gives you tips on how to survive as a diabetic person. Says, oh, check your blood sugar this time, juice is a good alternative. I don't know anymore because it's so hard.
The game was supposed to help you learn about diabetes, but it actually was the opposite. It gave you diabetes. That's how bad the game was.
Captain Novolin was seriously the best game about diabetes I've ever played, and I've played them all.
I think it's a pretty terrible idea when you make a game like Captain Novolin marketed towards diabetic kids and encourage them to sit in a dark room in one place and get fatter.
Here's the thing, if you've got diabetes, like, you don't need something like drawing you in to teach you about how to deal with it. The interest will come up naturally. Like, you have to be the laziest kid in the world to be like, I got diabetes, but I'm just gonna go play video games rather than learn about it. That's who this game's made for. They have so little faith in children.
If you replace insulin with heroin and Captain Novolin with a hooker with no teeth, I could relate more to this game, probably.
In short time, your fate will be sealed, Superman.
The worst game ever has to be Superman for the Nintendo 64.
Superman's kind of a difficult character to adapt. He's got just an infinite amount of power, so it makes it difficult to make it a challenging game, and they solved the problem by making him fly through rings, which is what everyone likes to see Superman do.
All you basically did was you're flying around and flying through rings as if he's some sort of circus animal. And what kind of way is that to treat Superman?
There was no music in the game, no background music. You know, they had like graphic problems, rendering problems.
You couldn't really see that far in the distance, so developers made up something really bizarre, saying, oh, the city's covered in a kryptonite cloud, so you can't really see anything.
Which was just like a nice way of saying, we haven't programmed this to show any graphics in the background, so kryptonite fog is obscuring your view.
There's a running theme on this list of licensed games, be it comic books, movies, because there's other games that are as bad, but when you put that license on it of something people like, they're inclined to check it out, and more people see just how atrocious your product is. It could have been any bad game, but they just took this American icon of Superman and pooped all over it.
And I remember like, oh, so excited to play Superman, and it was full of suck. Packed full of suck.
Cast your eyes back to 1982, E.T. fever grips the nation. Video game company says, hey, how can we cash in on this? Let's get an E.T. video game together.
It only makes sense that when you've got this giant blockbuster movie, you're gonna use the license to create a game that all the kids will buy.
And as good as the movie was, the heartwarming and touching was as bad as the game was.
Atari spent so much money for the license to make a game based on E.T. that they only had enough budget for 5 weeks development on the game.
So they throw together the world's fastest game, throw it out on source shelves, and of course everybody hates it.
You go around and trying to find Reese's Pieces as you fall down like this green landscape of a pit. And that's pretty much it.
The game would basically consist of you walking, falling down a pit, telescoping your neck to float back out of it, walking more steps, falling down a pit, telescoping your neck to get back out. I don't know if there was a way to win the game.
Now we see so many horrible video game and movie ports that we're just desensitized to it. But E.T., back then, it really meant a lot. Like, it was the first big flop.
Atari had made so many because they were expecting it to be such a hit that really the game is being credited for killing off Atari.
Atari way overproduced it and wound up having to take the unshipped copies and bury them in the desert.
They buried about 1 million cartridges in the middle of nowhere because these games were so horrible that no one wanted to see them and nobody even wanted to remember that they'd even produced them.
I actually still have a copy of the cartridge, which I found in my mom's house, and I keep it on my bookshelf just as a reminder, like never forgive, never forget. So, screw you, E.T.
There are some horrible games out there, and this list only scratches the surface. I can go on for days.
There's a lot of bad video games, just like there's a lot of bad movies. The bad video games are a little worse, because like a bad movie, you can just sit there and, you just let it happen to you. But a bad video game, you're actively playing through. So, they're the worst thing ever.